So my name is Amber. If you're just joining me for the first time this week, I have a background in business and in education, and Play Attention has been a really integral part in helping individuals reach their goal and using that to really build business going forward. So I'm really excited to be here and talk about engagement today. That's really where we're starting to get to that middle part of that funnel, right? So we've talked about that this week is when we have that funnel, you hear a lot about that when you were talking about sales, and getting individuals to do your Play Attention program is a sales, right? It's a sales opportunity. So finding them and then funneling them down into that Play Attention program that you're offering. So let's go ahead and get started today. Again, we're going to talk about how to engage potential clients today, tomorrow, and Friday. Again, remember, this is a week-long workshop. So tomorrow we're going to talk about how do you reach more. So we've talked about, so we'll have talked about how to create some great marketing content, how to target it, how to engage, and then how do you grow that once you find that. We talked a lot about that yesterday of starting small and growing. And so that is really a great opportunity to do in business. And so really helping individuals as they move forward. And once you determine who that is, once you start seeing that success, growing that into a bigger return on investment. So we'll discuss that tomorrow. And then remember, Friday, we are going to be discussing questions. I'm going to answer questions that you've provided. So I've gotten several now so far this week via email. So individuals that have submitted questions, thank you so much for doing that. Friday, we are going to spend time going through those questions. Now, you can always ask me a question as you pop on Friday. But if you have been thinking about a question, maybe it's something that we haven't covered, please feel free to share that in the chat box. Go ahead and put that question in there. If it's something we're going to be talking about, I'll let you know. But if it's not something we are either going to talk about or we're going to talk about in detail, I will cover that in the Q&A on Friday. So we have a whole hour blocked off on Friday, and it just will depend on how many questions we get and going through those questions and making sure we're answering those. So it is an important day for you to show up, because sometimes we don't even realize it's a question that we might have. And so really hearing all the other questions that the professionals are asking to just really help us with our business as well. So again, we're talking today about engaging our potential clients. So offering clients value. Engagement marketing means leading with content, not products. And that's why so much of what we've talked about up to this point has really been content-based, right? We've talked about ebooks, we've talked about webinars, we've talked about presentations, we've talked about all of those different pieces because we want to be seen as the expert. We want to be providing value. We want to be building those relationships, and that's going to help us bring that sale in because they trust us. They see us as the expert. And so really using that information to offer that engagement and really work with those clients. Remember, yesterday I mentioned sometimes it takes 8 times of touching someone. And that could mean sending them an email, having a phone call with them, having them download our ebook, having them attend a webinar, having them attend a second webinar, right? That is all of those different pieces that we're doing before they're ready to move forward or to engage more with us. So we're going to talk about once we start to have that engagement, how can we have that valued engagement? Conversations are great and providing value of what they need. But what we're really going to be covering today is assessments. Now, assessments really help your client see the path, right? So your clients are coming to you for direction, right? So they see the content you're providing, they understand what you're doing, and they're looking for you for direction. They're looking for you for answers. They want you to solve their problems. And assessments are a very great way to show them all of the areas that they might need strengthening, and then that path, that direction, because they don't know where they're supposed to go. So oftentimes when individuals, especially individuals that are diagnosed, they never get really a solution. They get their diagnosis And then then it's now what, right? We hear that so often when we're talking with our clients. Well, now what? What do I do? Or, I've tried using a calendar, every single calendar known to man, and it's never working. So how is your solution going to help me, right? And so connecting those dots for them. So when we talk about assessments, it allows us to provide a clear path to the solution. That's what we want to show them. We don't want to say, well, maybe, or it could. We want to give them very clear direction and understanding of that problem and that path to solution, right? So when we start talking about assessments, they're great. And specifically, we're talking about the play attention focus assessment. So I want to real quick get an idea. If you currently are using the play attention focus assessment with your clients, go ahead and raise your hand. Use that little raised hand icon just to see who here is currently using that. Because I think even if you're using it, you're still going to find some great tips today about it. But it looks like just a couple here. We've got a pretty good big group today, and it looks like just a couple are using that. So for individuals that aren't using the focus assessment, are you using something else to assess the clients that are coming in the door? So if you're not using the focus assessment and you're using something else, raise your hand. That way I can kind of get an idea if you're using anything else or you're just kind of learning as you go here. So it looks like there's a couple different ones. So if you raised your hand and said you do use an assessment, but you use something different than the focus assessment, you go ahead and type that in the chat box. And that way I can help kind of connect the differences between those two to really help you with that. So if you use an assessment that's not the play attention assessment, you can, or the focus assessment, you can go ahead and type that in the chat box for me. So when we start talking about the focus assessment, number one is it allows us to define the problem areas, okay? So it allows us to see what are those problem areas. Now, the great thing about the focus assessment is it's an objective assessment, right? So it's data driven. It's providing you with data because most likely your clients are going to come into you and they're going to say, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. Share with me some of those things you hear from your clients. Do you hear, my child's struggling with homework? They're struggling with focus. They're struggling with behaviors. I'm an adult and I can't make it to a meeting on time. Go ahead and type that in the chat box. I'm going to share some of those with you as we kind of go through today. So most of our clients are coming in with some kind of understanding of their struggle that they're having, right? So they know there's something there. They're seeking a solution. They understand the struggles that they're experiencing, right? And so they know it's there. But when we do an assessment, it's going to provide us pinpointed data of not only their weaknesses, but also their strengths. And so often we overlook their strengths, right? We're always focused on the weakness. How can we fix it? What do we need to do? But we need to look at those strengths and we need to celebrate those strengths as well. Because number one, it provides them with a win, right? It provides them with that positive feedback that we always want to circle back around. We want to ensure that, again, we're focusing on those areas that they need strength in, right? Not the areas that they're already strong in, because that's really a misconception and you do oftentimes, and I've experienced as well, I'll work with a client that all areas of executive function they're struggling with, right? Every single piece. But I also work with clients that do phenomenally in social environments, right? They love that social interaction. They read people well. They don't interrupt. They're, excited to have that conversation. But if you ask them to throw a ball, if you ask them how they move their body, they really struggle with that coordination piece, right? Or I talk to somebody that they're like, wow, I'm an athlete. I'm fabulous at that coordination, but get me in an environment socially and I really struggle. I have anxiety. I don't know what to say. I lose focus. I do all of those things, right? So important for us to focus on that strength as well. not only is it going to let us know, pinpoint those weak areas, but it's going to allow us to indicate the severity of the weakness. So where are we at in the weak area? Are we very, very severe and we really need to focus several different modules on that area? Or are they moderate in that area? So it really provides us with that great feedback, and it allows us to develop a plan. So using an assessment is the tool that's going to help us provide that clear plan so the individual knows exactly what we will be training on to build those areas that they know and that they see at their weekend. That's another interesting thing when we start talking about the assessments is so often individuals will think, no, I'm not impulsive at all. Nope, I think through my decisions. I don't have any risky behaviors, all of those different pieces, but then their assessment comes up higher in impulsivity than they think they are. And so we start talking about impulsivity and we start talking about, well, are you quick to judgment? Well, yeah. Does your mind go a million miles an hour all of the time? Yeah. Those are pieces of impulsivity as well, right? So the definitions around some of these skill areas are there's some kinds of preconceived notions to them, right? So they don't always see that impulsivity as things that aren't hyperactive, right? And so really ensuring that they are seeing all of those areas and those points. And so providing a path to build those areas. And then it's going to provide a baseline to document our process. And that's another important piece because when we have a baseline, we know when we've reached our final destination. Because remember, play attention is designed to build, strengthen, and create permanency with these skills, right? And so we're looking for a graduation point with that. We're looking for them to reach a point where they've built those skills and they have them permanently, right? So it allows us to determine when we've reached that final destination. However, it also gives us the ability to customize, continue to customize as we go through, because that's a really important piece here. By doing an assessment on an individual, we're creating that customized training plan for them. However, it provides us that baseline and we can do continued customization down the road if we need that to ensure we're hitting those goals. We're hitting that path. We're staying on the path, right? So really, really helpful. So I'm going to share some of the areas that that individuals shared with me. So if you shared, thank you. Susan says all of the above: time blindness, lack of priority. Chris says time management. Karen says homework, right? Homework, that's the biggest thing that in her clients that she works with. I see Jane here also mentions impulsivity, right? Behaviors, impulsivity is specific to behaviors. So you can see, again, wide variety. And oftentimes you see some correlation between your different clients, but we really want to make sure we're customizing it specifically for them. Now, Sheer Genius is going to help us with that too, remember, because Sheer Genius is able to automatically meet the individual where they're at and then challenge them, use that attention algorithm as they go through the program. So we're ensuring we're meeting them exactly where they're at, and we have that challenge yet success built into that program. So we're customizing their program in what modules we put into the program, but we're also having that customization built into our artificial intelligence as well. Thank you for sharing for those who shared with me. So when we start talking about helping individuals look at areas or skills that they need to build, the one that we always think of first is attention, right? So whether an individual is coming to you because they're struggling with ADHD, they're struggling with weak executive function, they're struggling because they're on the spectrum, right? That common denominator that we always think, right, to put that puzzle together is attention. And attention is a very important piece because attention is one of the catalysts that we need for brain change, right? However, it's just one piece of the puzzle. And when we're talking about the pieces we need, our focus assessment hits on all of those pieces that we need. So not only is our focus assessment going to assess their attentional control, right? So it's going to look at in a period of time, and we'll talk about the details of the assessment as we kind of go into here, it's going to, yes, provide us with great feedback on their attention, but it's also going to help us determine their processing speed, right? So our processing speed is the ability to take information in and get information out, right? So if you work with an individual and maybe it's a parent and they say, my child has to read the passage 3, 4, 5 times to comprehend or to really understand what they're reading about so they can come up with that information that's needed to answer the questions, right? That's our processing speed. And when it takes us 3, 4, 5 times to read something before we're able to process it, it's going to take us longer to do all of the other things, right? So processing speed is really an integral part in that foundation of executive function. It also allows us to get information out, right? So we know the answer to the question, we're getting called on in the classroom, but the answer just doesn't come out. Or I'm taking a test and I know that answer, but it takes me a little bit long to answer the question, and maybe it's a time test. And so I can't get through all of the questions, right? Processing speed is so important, and it's a really important piece of that executive function. So focus assessment is going to look at that processing speed. It's going to look at impulse control. And again, I mentioned this earlier in the conversation. Some people of that are maybe diagnosed ADHD inattentive. Maybe they're not diagnosed. They just are, they just have weak executive function. They might not even realize that impulse is affecting their day-to-day. Like I mentioned, I'm quick to judgment. I have really big emotions. My mind's going a million miles an hour, so I forget where I leave my things all of the time, right? I'm so excited about telling you something, I'm going to interrupt in a conversation, right? So that impulse control is behavior, and can be categorized as that hyperactivity, but it's so much more. And so being able to assess that really gives us that clear picture for our clients and helping them determine that path. And then our emotional regulation, right? Making sure that we're able to regulate those emotions, anxiety, anger, frustration, right? Annoyance, patience, all of those different pieces. When we don't have that strong emotional control foundation, it really can affect a lot of other pieces. Because if I have a really big emotional outbreak, right, I'm focusing in on something, I'm getting it done, I'm moving forward, and then something triggers that emotion, and I had that big emotional dysregulation. If I can get back on that topic I was on that task I was on, it's going to take me a while. Sometimes individuals can't even get back in on that task. So you can see how that can affect your executive function, how you're moving forward in that process. So our focus assessment is able to assess all of these different areas. And I'm going to show you some more examples as we go through. But our focus assessment is a norm reference test of attentional control. So what that means is we are comparing you to your peer group, because at different ages, we have different norm ranges for our attentional control. So we want to compare you to your peer group. So then we can have a really good idea of, are you below the norm? Are you on the norm? Or are you above the norm? Again, we're not just looking at deficits here. We're looking at above the norm as well, right? We want to see those strengths. We also want to see, of course, that weakness, and then the deficit of that weakness. How severe is it? And then we even want to see the individuals that are on the norm, because on the norm, we still need to address those areas, because as we get older, that norm shifts, right? So we want to make sure, yes, we're with our peer group, but we continue to grow with that peer group as well, okay? So when we talk about our focus assessment, anyone from 5 into adulthood can do the assessment. So it's 20 minutes in time. It's computer-based. Remember, it's objective. We're not doing anything but doing certain tasks in there. So it's data-driven. So 20 minutes in time, it starts and stops on its own. There's a little demo ahead of time. That's two minutes usually is the demo, and it's showing you what to do. Now, there's no reading, there's no writing in there. It's asking you to do very simple things. Like when you see the yellow star, you hit the space bar, right? And so it's measuring your capacity to choose what to pay attention to and what to ignore, right? So it sounds pretty easy in design. However, it's slow, it's mundane, it's repetitive. Frankly, it's boring, right? We're putting you in that least ideal situation because, generally speaking, when things are fun and exciting, you can pay attention. But when things become slow and mundane, repetitive, challenge, that's where you struggle. Because really, when we talk about attention deficit specifically, that's really a misnomer. There's not truly a deficit of attention. It's just what you're able to pay attention to, right? Our individuals with ADHD, they can pay attention fabulously on things that are interesting and exciting to them, right? They can tell you everything, they even hyper focus on it. But in that opposite environment, it's a lot more difficult, right? So by putting you in that environment, again, we're getting that baseline. We're pinpointing those areas where you struggle so we can build those areas. It measures our ability to stay focused on goal relevant stimuli, right? And information in the presence of potential interfering distractions, right? So, in addition to asking you to pay attention in an environment that's mundane and asking you to do specific goal related tasks, you're also going to be distracted, right? So, there's both visual and auditory distractions to see how you perform when those distractions are present. Are you very distracted by them, or are you missing them because you're inattentive, right? So it's going to work on both of those environments because oftentimes our inattentive individuals aren't impulsive because when things become boring, mundane, difficult, challenging, they go within, right? They're looking for that stimuli within, and so they're missing pieces of information. Where oftentimes the individuals that are very impulsive, right? They're going, 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 going. They can't stay on something. They're again looking for that stimuli. So it's looking for that stimuli. It's just how am I doing that? And really, the focus assessment is able to assess that. It's going to look at 4 areas of attentional control: how consistent you are, what your overall performance is, how impulsive you are, and then how you perform when you're distracted. So it's looking at all 4 of these pieces, again, data driven within that norm range. So here's an example. I'm just going to cover consistency today for the purposes of the length of time we have. But when we're looking at consistency, it's the measurement of reacting or performing in a way of accuracy and responsiveness, right? So it's determining how accurate we are to complete our tasks. Are we able to stay responsive? Are we able to sustain our attention during that period of time when there's mundane or repetitive tasks? Or do we start out doing it and then we think, oh my goodness, I've done this. This is boring. I've already done this. I don't want to do it again. And so then we're off doing something else. We're thinking about something else. Maybe we, start to daydream, or we just start hitting buttons because we want to move forward, right? So here you see Kara's score. So just a little bit of information on what you're looking at here. So you see at the top there, the line, there's a blue line, and then there's a light and purple, and there's a date, and there's a percentage. So always whenever you do your assessment, you're going to get the date you do the assessment. You're going to see why here shortly, because you can do a post assessment. And so now you've got comparisons. You're going to see their norm range up top. So it's looking at consistency right now. And specifically, we're looking at females that are 6 years old. Okay, so that's the norm range of who we're working with. And then the actual norm range you see is that light purple to dark purple. So you're always going to see when an individual is younger, that norm range is going to be bigger, right? But as we get older, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So the dark part of the range, the dark purple, is the higher end of the norm range. The light purple is the lower end. You can kind of think of it as the bell curve, right? And then the blue is where Kara herself performed, okay? And then there's a percentage. So I like to break that percentage up in a time. So if we're looking at 20 minutes, a quarter of that is, about 5 minutes, right? About 5 minutes of this 20-minute assessment, Kara was able to be consistent in her responses. She was able to do the task. She was able to sustain her attention. So even though she's on that norm range, she's within that norm range. When we think of it as 5 out of 20 minutes, that's not very long, right? That's not a very long time to stay engaged. There's a lot that we can miss in that 75 or in that 15-minute range or that 75%, right? So you see she's lower than the average individual within her group of individuals. She may be inconsistent for extended period of time, right? And so another way to think of consistency is, and it can be, you can relate this to an adult or relate this to a child, but I wake up, I I get up early, I do all of the things that I need to do for the day. I'm on time for all of my events. Everything goes really, really well. The next day I wake up and I can't get one thing done on my list, right? Am I the same person? How am I feeling? What happened? Yesterday was so great and now today is mediocre, right? And then I have another mediocre day. And then the fourth day, I have another really great day. That's that inconsistency. You can see it the same way in a child where maybe if you're a teacher or you work with parents that have gotten feedback from teachers where they say, wow, we went through our math facts today. John, he had all of them. He knew what he was doing. He could recite them. He could provide me feedback. And then the next day it was like we didn't learn anything at all, right? That inconsistency. We want that consistency. We want it to be that standard is that I stay engaged, I'm responsive, I'm accurate in what I do. So that's one of the areas that consistency is showing us in the focus assessment. So when we do our focus assessments, when we do the reviews here at Play Attention, we do them over Zoom. And but you can do this in person as well, right? You can do this either way. You would have the results up on the screen, and then you would also have the different game modules that are available. Because what we're trying to do here is show them, here are the deficits, here are our weaknesses, and here is the solution. And then we're going to connect those dots for them. So by doing this module, this Play Attention module, we are going to build said deficit. Okay, so we're connecting those dots together. We're showing them by doing these Play Attention modules. These are specifically designed to build that skill area. Okay, now when we're talking about consistency, performance, impulsivity, and distractions, there are numerous different modules that are going to be effective. So it's not just one will be for consistency, one will be for performance, there's going to be multiple things that you're going to be putting into a person's profile to help them understand. And remember, this is our engagement. This is how we are directly connecting with that client, addressing the problem that they have, and providing them a direct solution, right? You are providing them on a silver platter, right? The solution that they're looking for their problem. Okay. So when we talk about Kara, if we go back to Kara's Play Attention or her focus assessment, her consistency plan of action is this, right? So she's going to benefit from frequent short breaks during a completion of task, right? So she's going to need some breaks in that, typically 1 to 2 minutes in duration, right? As she gets stronger, those won't be needed as often, right? But initially, she's going to need those breaks. She's going to need that stopping point and then starting back up of that task. A 20-minute task at one time is going to be too much for her to do in one sitting. We need to break that up. Maybe we do 5 minutes and take a minute break or 2-minute break, right? Do another 5 minutes and we break it up that way. However, we need very actionable skill, right? So to change our brain, to build skills with that neuroplasticity that I've talked about throughout so far this week, we need to spark brain change, right? When we spark brain change, we're able to create new neural pathways in our brain. And those neural pathways are what we use to do skills. And so we need catalyst present, we need attention, we need deliberate practice, and we need challenge. So we need to focus on those areas for Kara that are going to build that consistency for her. So when we look at the different modules here, Attention stamina is going to help because attention stamina is specifically designed to help us sustain our attention at will. So the simple fact of being able to pay attention for longer and longer periods of time, especially on mundane, repetitive, boring types of information, right? So right there, we're teaching her, we're building those pathways in her brain to strengthen that as we go. We also want to help her with time on task, right? So time on task allows us to get on task, to stay on task, right? So because her consistency was lower, it indicated that she was not staying on the task until it was completed, right? She stayed on the task for about 5 minutes and then she was off somewhere else. She wasn't completing that task. So our time on task is not only going to help us get started on that task, right? Avoid that procrastination, but it's also going to allow us to complete that task. And that's essential for individuals that struggle with inconsistency. One day I can get my tasks completed, the next day I can't. And so really helping build that ability. And then we're going to incorporate academic bridge because remember, academic bridge is where we work on that transfer and generalization. That's always been the struggle with programs that are just brain games, right? That's what sets Play Attention apart from all of those other programs because we're the only program that provide feedback technology with integrated with cognitive skill training and behavioral shaping, right? So we're taking that feedback, we're providing that, integrating it with cognitive training, and then we have that behavioral shaping as well. And academic bridge is where we're going to start to work on that transfer and generalization. We're not just having them do these skills in a game. We're going to have them work on actual tasks in academic bridge, and they're still going to be using that body wave armband, and they're still going to be getting feedback, right? So the way that you can do this with your clients in a setting where you're working, so you're showing them these are the modules, and then they're going to say, well, how are you going to do everyday tasks when we're working in the office? It's very simple. It depends on the age, right? So if you've got a young one, puzzles, reading. Even if I'm reading to you, I want you to stay consistent and engaged, right? So if I'm reading to you and you're getting feedback that you're focused, you're getting that feedback of, oh, this is what it feels like when I'm paying attention, right? When I'm reading. For maybe an individual that's 6, 7, 8 or older, bring in worksheets. There's worksheets that they can do. They're actually reading to you. I have individuals practice instruments while they're using their academic bridge. I have adults use it while they're having conversations because what we're working on is tasks that we do in every day that we struggle to be consistent with, right? So we're practicing that, but we're still getting that feedback, right? We're still getting feedback. So we're having that experiential learning and we're continuing to build those pathways. So to help Kara build her consistency, the modules that are going to be necessary in her plan include attention stamina, time on task, and academic bridge. So you're sharing, you're engaging with your client. Okay, so Kara is struggling with consistency. She's struggling to stay engaged in her tasks. She's struggling to sustain that attention when things are boring or mundane, and she's struggling with her accuracy. So to build those areas, the modules that we have available are attention stamina, sustain that attention, strengthen that ability, work on that task completion, staying in the task till it's done, and then we're going to practice it in every day. So right there in just one area of that assessment, you're showing your client, here's just one area we've pinpointed, and here's how we're going to fix that. Here's the solution that we're coming up with. And that's just one area. That's just one area of what we're discussing. And so we're going to do this for every single section. So if you're currently using the Play Attention Focus Assessment and you're not doing this type of methodology with it, this is going to make it much more effective with you. When you hit on the areas, and you can ask additional questions, right? So when we start talking about performance, that's our processing speed, our memory. And so we can start asking questions like, do they struggle with multi-step process? Oh my goodness, yes. I tell them to go upstairs and put their pajamas on and grab a book and brush their teeth, and I get upstairs and they're playing, right? We can ask them, oh, do they ever lose objects? Oh my goodness, they lose everything. If it's not attached to their body, we're having to replace it. We can start to ask about problem solving, critical thinking, taking information and processing it and coming up with a solution, right? So we're not just providing all of it. You need to still make that very interactive. Listen to what they have to say. Play attention has a solution for all of that, right? So integrating that data, listening to what they say, and showing them that path to solution, okay? So another way that is very beneficial for you to be using the focus assessment is in mid and post evaluations, right? So we want to do it pre, because this is going to give them exactly the areas that they need to strengthen. And we're going to give them a plan of exactly how we're going to provide that plan, what that solution is. However, remember I mentioned earlier, we want to make sure that we know when we've hit our final destination, right? So the great thing about the focus assessment is we can do it at mid. So about 20 hours into the program, we can do it again. And this allows us to see the progress that we've made, as well as if we need to make any additional customization, right? Because we're starting on track, we want to make sure we're staying on track, right? As we go through. So that mid evaluation gives us a really great opportunity to see where we are and do we need to adjust. And then that post evaluation is letting us know, have we reached our final destination, or do we need a little bit more in this one area, right? Because remember, we're working towards that 40 hours, but that's not a one size fits all. Everybody's a little bit different. They might need a little bit more. And generally, they're not going to need more in all of the areas. There's going to be very specific areas that it takes them a little bit longer to build. And so doing a final or a post of 40-hour assessment allows us to look at that, and it gives us a really good apples to apples comparison. And so here's an apples to apples comparison. So first you see that Kara took this in January of 2016, 6 years old. This is that consistency again. So we're in that lower end of the range, but still lots of room for improvement when we're looking at that 20 minutes broken down specifically for Kara, okay? But the bottom shows you, and this is why the date is so important, the bottom shows you about 6 months later, okay? So June 2017, she's had a birthday, so she's 7, so that norm range is going to change just a little bit. Notice that it goes from, the starting point goes from 10 to 16, right? And now instead of going up to 51, it's up to 62, so a little bit. But look at the difference. Look at the difference. And this is an actual assessment that we've done here. It's one of our actual clients that agreed to letting us share their information. So in that 6-month time, she went from 24% or about 5 minutes to 88%. So not only the high end, but she's exceeded the high end of that norm range, and she's doing it almost the full 20 minutes. So just in a short 6-month time frame and working through the play attention modules that were identified for her, it shows you the enormity of progress that she can make, right? So this is another great way to engage your clients, because they're going to see the changes, but you can't argue with data, right? You cannot argue with the fact that in just that short amount of time, she went from 24% to 88%. And that is a really, really great picture to show. So that is why doing a mid as well as a post is great, because you can really see those differences. And if you're working with a group of individuals, if you can ask your clients always, do you mind if I share your data, right? Would you mind doing a success story for me? Would you mind me sharing your data so I can, at the beginning, when I'm engaging and I'm talking about these assessments, I can show the progress that previous clients have had, right? That is a great tool because you can't discount data that's being seen. Here is impulsivity on Kara. So we didn't talk about impulsivity earlier in breaking down her modules, But you see, so when we're talking about, just to back up a little bit, when we're talking about the assessment, we have the 4 areas, right? Consistency, performance, impulsivity, and distraction. So we look at the first two, consistency and performance, as our positive benchmarks, right? They're providing positivity to strong executive function, right? They're the skills we need for that strong executive function. And so we want those to be as far to the right as possible. But when we look at impulsivity and distractions, those are more of our negative benchmarks, right? They're not conducive to strong executive function. So we want to push those down, right? Now, you can see here in her first assessment, that norm range is really, really big. And it's even big as a 7-year-old because we know, and this is why it's so important to do that norm reference assessment, because we know there's a huge range for impulsivity when we're working with children, right? We know that impulsivity is there. Remember, executive function is something they're learning as they get older. However, if they have a comorbidity, it's very hard for them to learn, right? So you see that almost for the full 20 minutes, she was impulsive, right? And so 88% of the time. But remember, play attention addresses impulsivity in every single module. So if you think back to the slide that I showed you earlier, all of those modules, every single one of those address impulsivity because it's such an important piece of executive function, of having that inhibitory control or that strong impulse control is very necessary for strong executive function. So you see, again, a huge change, 88% all the way down to 1%, because every single time Carol went on Play Attention, she was addressing that impulse. And you see that huge change. So again, another really great way to engage with your clients as you go forward. So you can become, if you're, I think there was only a couple individuals on the in the workshop today that are Play Attention accredited. So that means you as a professional can incorporate focus into your Play Attention program. So you have that ability to become an accredited user of Play Attention. So you can use this with your clients every single time you're working with them in the beginning. You can do those mid, you can do those post assessments as well. I just want to show you how easy it is to use. So I'm going to go ahead. I can't show you a lot of my dashboard here. This is my focus dashboard because of course we have client information in there and we don't want to compromise any client information that have not given us approval, right? But when I go into the focus, so when you become focus accredited, there is content, it's self-based content that you'll learn. It takes about 10 to 12 hours to learn all of the information with focus, what we're looking at, how to read it, how to create a plan, how to assess. Again, it's self-paced, but I've had a lot of professionals do it, really buckle down and do all of the learn everything they need to learn all over a weekend. And then there is a test that you'll take. We provide you with that information, you take the test, and then once you pass that test, you become accredited as a focus assessment provider. And you will be able to go in and do focus assessments on any of your clients that you have. Now, we talked yesterday about targeting and providing content. Focus is a really great lead generator because you can provide this focus assessment prior to somebody working with you, and you are showing them and really reinforcing, because most of it they already know. So you're reinforcing their areas that they need to build, but you're providing them with a path. And that is so powerful because, as I mentioned, so many individuals are being told, well, this and this and this is your deficit, but there's no plan. There's no plan on how do I build that? How do I get stronger? How do I, where do I go from here? So we're providing that for them. And so generally our focus assessments are $50 a piece, but you have a lot of leadway as a professional. I have some professionals that provide their focus assessments at no cost. They provide it as a lead generator. Do this assessment. I'll give you this free review of the assessment. And that's how they share Play Attention. I have some individuals that maybe charge half price, right? Or 2-for-1. There's so many different ways. We don't regulate how you do that. You can do that however you want. As a professional, though, every time you do an assessment, you do have to have a test credit to be able to do that assessment. Those are $25 a piece. So it just depends. Do you want to offset that $25 or do you want to use that as a business expense because it's bringing people in your door? I'm going to say here at Play Attention, we have a much higher close rate when we do a focus assessment than when we don't, because it is showing that true customization that can be done for that individual. So when I'm creating, if I go in, if I'm a professional and I want to do an assessment for someone, I just need their name, first and last name, their email, and then I need to select their gender because remember it's norm-based, and I need to put in their birthday. You don't necessarily have to put in a country. You don't have to put in a contact information, and you can have the assessment emailed to you. That's how we do it here at Play Attention. So I put in the information for the individual. I put in my email address because I want to customize the email that's going to them, because all of our focus assessments are done virtually. So the client will get the email, they'll click on the link for the focus assessment, download that software, and then put in a code. That it will start, it will do that 2-minute review or demo, and then the assessment starts. It will run for 20 minutes, automatically stop on its own, and the results will come directly back to us. So you have two options as a professional. You can do it that way, where you provide that information for the individual to do it off-site, or you can do it right there. That would be a great thing to do because you could do the assessment right there and do the review right there with the client. If you have a computer, you just put in their information. So you would create this, set this up here, and then you would go over here to the side. There's a lot of different options here, but I would just select a home code. Once I have that home code, that's what I provide to the client. And then it's very simple to do. Again, it gives them a demo on what to do. And then as soon as they're done with that assessment, the results automatically come to you. And you can download them right away, and you can view them and review them with your client. So it's a really great tool to use, very easy to use, very little to do. Generally, when we have our focus assessment providers, they'll call us and say, I want to purchase 10 credits, right? So they purchase 10 credits at $25. They have those credits in their dashboard. They'll have a little thing up in the corner that says how many credits they have available. When you get low, you just give us a call or shoot us an email and say, hey, I need to purchase some more credits. We make those available to you. It's pretty quick. It takes just a couple hours if it's during regular business hours for us to provide those for you. Okay. So really simple. We can talk a little bit more if you have specific questions about being a focused accredited assessor. But what I want to really emphasize is by using an assessment, using the focus assessment, you've engaged your client by creating a clear path. And we need to show them what we can do for them, right? Again, that's what I kind of ended with yesterday is most of your clients are going to be asking, what can you do for me? Well, this is a very clear path for you to show them exactly what and how you're going to help them move forward. Okay. So go ahead and start typing in any questions you might have specific to focus. If there's any specific questions you have about a client doing the assessment, reviewing the assessment, anything specific to being a focus accredited individual. But this is the number one way that we are engaging with our clients. Yes, we're doing free consultations. We do that very often. We offer those to anyone and everyone, both professionally and for our home clients, a one-to-one Zoom consultation. But our preferred method is a focus assessment with potential clients, because right there, it provides us with the exact information we need to share with them. When we're doing a consultation, we're giving them a lot of great information, but it's very generalized. We can pinpoint some areas and we can talk about some areas, but again, the focus assessment puts it in black and white for our clients. So next steps, tomorrow's workshop is how do we reach more? Okay, so we've talked about how do we create content? We've talked about where do we find the targeted individuals that want what we have, right? Where's that niche that we need to work with? How do we engage with them, right? Showing them that clear path of how we're going to help them. Then tomorrow we're going to talk about growing that group. Remember, I said yesterday, I used the example of Amazon, which you can buy anything now on Amazon. And like I said yesterday, it sometimes comes the next day to your house. But when Amazon started, they were only books. And so that's really important to start, and then we can grow as we go forward. And so tomorrow we're going to talk about how do we grow? How do we get bigger? What are those tools that we can use to reach more individuals? And we're going to talk about a little bit tomorrow about return on investment. So definitely talking through numbers and things like that to provide you with that, because I know that's a very important piece of your business. So continue to put any questions you might have in there. Also, if you're interested in a consultation, if you're a Play Attention provider right now and you're interested in our certified provider, you're interested in becoming Focus accredited, just go ahead and type in consultation in there, and we will reach out to you, schedule a time, find out specifically what you're interested in learning more about or providing more for your clients. If you're new to Play Attention, you're either a home client and you're looking to do this professionally, or you're a professional that has been thinking about using Play Attention, you want to learn more about the specifics of Play Attention, you can type in consultation for that as well. Focus, again, if you want to learn about Focus, you can simply type Focus in, and we will provide you with lots of great information for that as well. Let's see here. I've got a couple consultations here. Oh, I do have a question. Okay, so there is a question on here from Kim, and she says, do you charge for every assessment that you do? Usually, yes. So sometimes we will offer a free assessment in the beginning as kind of a lead generator. But then we will, around the 20-hour mark, our executive functions coaches will reach out to their clients and see if they want to do that mid-level assessment, provide them obviously the benefits of doing that. And then generally we will charge for that, usually the $50 for that. We will generally charge post assessment as well. Sometimes, yesterday we talked a little bit about affiliate and referral type of marketing. If we have individuals that submit success stories to us, or individuals that refer another client and they purchase, that's where we'll use some of those focus assessments or the other modules that maybe they don't have built into their program, or we'll offer some of those at no cost to kind of generate some of that, because as we all know, word of mouth is so very important. That goes a lot further than a lot of different content you can create and build. So great question. Thank you for sharing that with me. So thank you all for being here today. I greatly appreciate your time. Tomorrow is our last day of content. We're going to talk about reaching more clients. And then remember, Friday, we will be doing that question and answer. So please share any questions you might have. You can either email me, you can submit them here in the chat box. Just let me know what those questions are, and we will address those on Friday. So again, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time, and I look forward to chatting with you more again tomorrow. Have a great day.